What cards should be banned in Vanguard? That is the question I want to address today. Now do note that these are my opinions. I realize this is a touchy subject for some, but I feel like this is a conversation that we need to have. If there is anything you disagree with here, do let me know in the comments down below, preferably with some solid arguments as well. In this video I will be covering both standard and premium, as I believe both formats could be improved by introducing restrictions. We will be starting with standard, considering it has a much smaller card pool and clan pool, meaning there is also less to talk about. Now, we all know which clan I'm about to be mentioning. Some sort of restriction on this clan should have been introduced like 2 months ago. Hell, this clan shouldn't have made it out of R&D. In the pre-AL4 meta, Oracle Think Tank is a major problem. It has been dominating top 8s all across the West. The top 3 was all OTT in London BCS. 6 out of the top 8 were OTT in London actually. The same results keep popping up consistently in the US as well, and for a very good reason. Even though 2 more boosters and 2 more trial decks have come out since Q4's release, and almost every clan has been power creeped by the next ones in some way or another in order to stimulate booster pack sales as with any other card game, OTT remains the emperor of the meta. The ability to impact variance in such a major way in a format where variance defines the majority of your game, getting insane plussing and a great finisher on top of that, and finally also having a card that single-handedly cucks all forms of retiring, of course this clan is busted. I will say in Japan, AL4's introduction of Murakumo hurt them a bit, but OTT still shits all over every other deck, and remember, when new cards come out, people often jump ship for a few weeks to have fun with the new cards. They might as well go back to OTT sooner or later. We'll see what AL4 ends up doing in the coming months, but regardless, in the West I would currently do this. Hit Promise Daughter to 1 or 0. Understand that OTT's advantage comes from Imperial Daughter and Amaterasu. Hitting Promise Daughter will force them to call more cards from hand, while simultaneously giving retire-based clans like Kagero and Shadow Paladin a solid way to reduce their advantage, without actually killing the deck. The second restriction I would introduce in the current English meta is hitting Deer to 1. This would make access to their finisher just slightly less consistent and make the turtle for game a less viable option to be going for 24/7. With that being said, I do realize, like I said, in the post-AL4 meta, Murakuma is messing with them a bit already, so maybe restrictions will no longer be that crucial by the end of next month. Regardless, OTT is getting yet another round of support soon, and unless that support doesn't mesh with the current support at all, it will only get even stronger. I believe these 2 restrictions should have been introduced a long while ago. Another conversation we could be having is whether Dragonic Waterfall needs to be hit in some way, because it's keeping Kagero very relevant for very long and they're getting even more support. But then again, Nouvelle is kind of like this odd card where it would decrease Waterfall's use, but then people are seeing, hey, it's actually not better than Waterfall, should we even play it, and so forth. So I'm not sure if we should be doing something to Kagero just yet, because again, like the new stuff, Murakumo, Shadow Paladin, OTT seems to be the 3 best decks post AL4, and so Kagero may not need to be hit just yet. Now, getting into premium, the first card we need to talk about is Gize. It needs to go. Outright ban it. There is no argument that can be made for its existence. Here is the problem with Gize from a design perspective. It scales too well with defensive power creep. And guess what standard introduced a lot of? Defensive power creep. Higher base guard on triggers, higher base guard on units, protect markers, and soon we will all get to know the joy that is premium Gize Angel Feathers with their almost infinite healing. Another problem with the card is that it's ridiculously easy to play. Its win condition is almost automated. Months ago I made the joke that my dog could pilot a Gize deck, and that honestly hasn't changed. But now with the beautiful invention of OTT Gize, it only got worse. Just like No-Sale Gize, OTT Gize is able to keep you at low damage. Sure, not as low as No-Sale could, but still low enough to ridiculous proportions. You are not allowed to play the game. Beyond that, every mistake made by Gize's opponent is crucial and can cost you the game, whilst the mistake made by the Gize player is usually not even noteworthy. The amounts of advantage OTT Gize decks can create without having to actually play the game is ridiculous, so fucking up your min-maxing doesn't even matter. The deck has a ridiculously low skill floor and a ridiculously low skill ceiling, all the while doubling the skill ceiling of the opponent's deck. The Gize player is playing Uno and the opponent is playing chess against the Grandmaster. Some people may argue that it's just OTT Gize, so we should ban Gize from being used in that clan, but that's honestly not enough. It's only a matter of time before another stupid hybrid rolls around, Angel Feather being the obvious next in line, with Metatron's healing on ride, Raphael healing on stride, rescue checks and potential protect marker Zabania heal abuse should we see some Gavriel play. The deck may end up being even dumber than OTT Gize. Again, it's only a matter of time before the card just gets problematic again in some other build. That's why I propose banning Gize altogether. Next up is Enigmatic Assassin. I think by now most people know there is a quote-unquote loop with Enigmatic and No Life King Death Anchor. I will say that I don't count it as a loop personally, considering it's not infinite, but once the combo does go off, you basically have a guaranteed win with the sheer amounts of attacks you can put out. Now for my testing, this deck is not as problematic as Gize since it can brick still and has a few weaknesses that make it not as consistently insane as Gize, but regardless, the combo is still faster and more deadly than both Zoa's auto win and Ichitom. I personally have no issues with Zoa Antlion and Ichitom. I've said it before, anyone who actually plays premium knows that these setups take time and generally faster decks will beat them before the combo is relevant. That is not the case for the Assassin Anchor combo. This thing is fast, it has no real counterplay, its only weakness is consistency. If you brick, you lose and there isn't much you can do about it. So in closing, limit Assassin to 1. It was never a problem as a fun tech card, it just shouldn't be abused in a loop. Finally, the last card I would ban is Ellie the G-Guard in Bermuda Triangle. Hear me out, Ange is a big problem as most would agree. Even though it hasn't received V support, it's still in the top 3 decks this format by a huge margin. The deck can do everything. Many people call for the banning of Ange herself. I do see why. The amounts of plussing this card creates by herself is bonkers, but I don't think we need to outright kill this archetype. The main issue is that the Ange deck's strength comes from many things compounding. You have the Lucille spam for huge numbers, you have the grade 2 that counts as a heal for more G-guarding, you have the PG that they can play 6 times, you have Ange creating ridiculous amounts of plussing, you have the Riviere abuse to stride when your opponent is at grade 2, and then you also have Ellie, which is arguably the strongest G-guard in the game, well perhaps after the Nile Griffin, I'm not sure on that one. Basically, the deck does everything and it has so many good cards and options that most builds can't even run them all. This deck has a luxury problem. It has the perfect combination of advantage, aggression and defensive capabilities. I just happen to believe that you don't need to nerf all of them to fix this deck. Just take a shot at one of the pillars, let's say, and the deck will at least have some counters. I think banning Ellie is a good option, but I'd be fine with Lucille going or something like that as well. It's just that that could potentially hurt another archetype. I'm open to suggestions in the comments down below. Now ending the video, I realize some people would have liked to see mention of Ichitom, Zoa Antlion, or maybe even something in Spike Brothers. I'm currently just of the belief that that isn't necessary just yet. Perhaps if Gize and or Assassin is ever banned, we see the resurgence of one of these decks as the king of the meta, and then we can consider further limitations. I just don't see these decks putting in enough hurt to justify hitting them. Most good premium decks are able to deal with them in some form or another, but that is not the case for the bullshit that is Gize. That is all for today. Hope you found this interesting. If you did, please subscribe to the Solemn Vanguard channel and click the bell button to stay up to date. Like the video if you liked the video, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What would you ban in which format? What card is a major issue? Let me know and I will see you soon. Ciao.